So, okay, any questions on kidnapping or the three cases? But today, what we plan to do is to really understand very quickly examples of abduction and then what are the differences between the two categories of offenses, kidnapping and abduction. Enticing and um, taking. Clear? The difference between the two? Taking is
And
referring to,
can you explain it a little more, the difference between enticing and taking?
when we say taking, this is in the present that something is being done, either to allow the child to continue, come with, to go with you. You physically pick up the child and take, you hold the hand of the person and take. So this is happening at the time when the taking is happening. Enticing usually has happened in the past, as a consequence of which something is happening now in the present. So in Vardarajan, of course, the judges have not talked about it, but as we discussed, that there must have been some conversation between the two about marriage. It did not happen at that point of time. It must have happened in the past, because of which this girl was confident to leave her house. So the lure of marriage, and lure does not matter whether it is a false lure or it is a correct lure. As long as somebody has been lured to do something, whether because the promise to create a music album for you, is it an offer of marriage? It is an offer of a job. So if this has been done to a child without the consent of the parents, and the child is acting on his or her own because of that lure, because of that incentive which has been provided, this child leaves the company of their parents, leaves the custody and care of the parent, and goes. The, the person, remember this word, this one, this section does not use the word which indicates intention. It merely is referring to the action of either taking or enticing. It does not say whoever entices with the intention to entice. So yesterday when Vandana or somebody was asking the question that if I have been good to a child, because I do not have my own children, I'm not able to conceive, then the offer which is being made or whatever is being given to the child is being given with the purpose of luring the child to come to my house, to come to my care. So if it was happening without that also, the only question is whether your action is responsible in the child leaving their parents' custody and care. What was your intention? Was it a good thing or bad thing, or whether you, so there was a case of R versus Philip. So the girl was below the age of 18, but she looked above 18. The boy did ask the girl, "How old are you?" And she's above 18. He believed her. So went away with her. The judges held him liable, even though he had no intention to take a minor girl. He had actually made inquiries about it. But the judges still say, no, it is an action. At that means it's a very old 1800 case. At that time, the English morality was that you must not take a girl from their parents' custody and care, even for purposes of marriage, without the consent of the parents. So certainly consent of parents technically was not required for a child above the age of 18. So he had no intention to violate the law, but he was doing something which was considered as immoral by the society of that time. So the judges said he did something which he knew was immoral and it turned out to be illegal also. He will have to take the consequences. So that was the reasoning, and that was an example because all other cases we have been looking so far have been using a term which indicates the state of mind. So if a person assumes that there is a consent, they assume that the child is not a child but above the specified age. So the what should be the mens rea, what should be the state of knowledge, what should be the state of intention of the person is not mentioned there at all in the section. Therefore, this has also been one question about the offense of kidnapping. Is it an offense of strict liability? That should I take or incite a person knowing it to be a child? Or even if I do it to a person not knowing it to be a child, will I still be liable? So, in the interest of children, the general provision has been created that in order to protect children, it has to be it has to be ensure that the best interest of the child has to be taken note of, and best interest is seen to be with the just 1 second. So the in the this section is silent, and the question has not been debated in this one. That what is the object? So we do know that there has been a discussion in the Varadarajan case that the purpose is not only to protect the rights of the parents but also to protect children themselves. So kidnapping is not only an offense against the parents, it is an offense against the child also. And therefore, one has to be extra cautious about removing a child from the lawful keeping of their parents. So taken is again emphasizing on the present action being done by the accused person. Enticing usually refers to something which has been done in the past. It may happen. Now, in a lot of rape cases, the person offered the child a pack of biscuit and says, "Mere saath aao, I'll give you one more." So the child holds this man's finger and walks. He's doing both the things at the same time. He's enticing at present as well as taking the child away. But enticement always means that you lure so that the other person comes willingly with you. So either on its own they leave or they come willingly with you because of the promise they have made, which they believe. They have to believe that promise for them to be innocent in that category. And you know that this is just a lure, there's no substance in it. The point we were making between abduction and kidnapping out of the lawful guardianship. What is the purpose of kidnapping is of no use. As long as, so the example for the example I gave you was that somebody, the big music company gives in a card and says, "Come to Bombay, we'll do a recording for you." So when the child leaves their house, or they say, "We'll give you a good chance to work in the movies." And they really mean it. They've seen the child do a great play at the school, and they gave that visiting card and contact number and said, "Yeah, come, we'll make all arrangements for you." And they mean it. They're not going to exploit. So when the child leaves, and I've said they will be held liable for kidnapping because in this case, their activity has amounted to enticing. So whether they have whoever entices a child out of the keeping of the lawful guardian. So whether this, suppose this child has all the intention to come back. So does that mean that the intention should be, or the consequence should be that the child must leave the custody of their parents forever? Or if the child says, "Okay, I've just gone for recording my album and I'll come back. So even though my parents are not willing." So there are two possibilities. The child tells about this offer to the parents and parents say, "Yeah, go." So then there is no kidnapping because the consent of the parent, even though in this case it is not obtained by the child, but it has been with the knowledge and consent of the parents. But if the parents are not permitting and the child still believing the promise goes on his own, for the time being till the child returns, he is out of the keeping. So therefore, liability will come to the persons who have provided that enticing atmosphere. Um,
Ma'am,
yes.
ma'am, is it necessary, ma'am, is the duration, the time also necessary, in which the child was kept out of the legal guardians? Uh,
Yeah, no, it does not matter because the offense of kidnapping is complete the moment the child is taken out of the keeping of the lawful guardian. So whether you had the intention to return the child tomorrow, you've taken the child only for the night. Doesn't matter because and that's where the distinction happens in abduction and kidnapping. So abduction, we say, is a continuing offense in the sense that suppose A was abducted. He was blindfolded, his hands were tied up, and he was picked up, made to leave his car and go with these other people, abductors. From the abductor's house, another set of bigger goons. They found, oh, such and such person is with them. They are asking ransom of 50 lakhs, but this other group think that they can actually get 1 lakh. I'm trying to remember the movie which I just saw, where abduction kept on happening one after the other. No, the smaller goon from the smaller goon, the person is taken to the bigger goon, and so on. Every time there is a new offense of abduction happening. But in case of the children, if the child has been taken or has left the because of the enticement has left the family, the house. Suppose the child who is now going to Bombay for against the parents' wishes because of the promise made by the film company. On the way, the brothel keepers abduct that child. They said, "Oh, beautiful girl, let's now she will be a very good asset to our brothel," and they just take her with them. So that is not kidnapping because the child was not in the lawful keeping of the guardians anymore. The offense will be abduction. So in the first instance, it is the film company who is liable for kidnapping, even though they are nowhere on the scene. But it is their action in the past which has resulted into the child taking the action. Without that promise, he would not have gone. It may be that he has heard about them being very good, and they give chance to all newcomers. So this child leaves the house on their own. Then there's no enticing; it is just their word of mouth or their reputation. So we do know lots of film stars do a lot of charity work. So somebody believing that no, if he reaches this such and such person, that person is going to look after me well, because he is like that. There's no incentive done for no enticement provided to this particular child by that person. So in the neighborhood, you might find, oh, such and such auntie is very good. So she's good to everybody. She has not said anything to you. But when a child is being abused in their own house and he decides to leave the house and go to that auntie because he thinks that he can provide her protection, then the auntie has not done anything wrong. She has not provided any enticement because this what she does is she does it to every child or neighbors for that matter. So she is a good soul person. But of course, the auntie then would have the responsibilities of informing about this child to the police, and that has to be done within a reasonable time. We have had those exam questions also that they were two friends, as class fellows, good friends, and one child was feeling very unhappy at home, so she left the house and went to the friend's house, and the parents of that child gave her shelter. So the question is whether the parents have committed the offense of kidnapping. What do you think?
no, ma'am.
And the
Because
child
the
came on
parents, the
their
parent, this friend has been saying, my parents are very good. At any point of time, anything problem, you can always come to our house. So the parents certainly have not provided any kind of um enticement to the child. The other fellow has also been offering this as a line of support. So he's not saying leave your house and you can come and live with us. No, children do talk about like that with each other in their friendly conversations. But whether the statement which have been made are to motivate the child to leave the house. So asking a child to leave a violent place and asking them to come to a safer place so that the whatever formal positions can be formal processes can be initiated are different are distinguishable in that sense. So somewhere when you are aware that a child is in drastic in a very violent home, for example, as a neighbor you want to save that child, what should you be doing?
And report the police and all.
Because then it's a case of exercising your right of private defense to save the body of the neighbor's child. But because you have time to take recourse to the public authority, if you know that a child is being beaten black and blue at this point of time in front of you, you can straight away intervene and protect the child and let the police know about this whole thing. So it is not that if a neighborhood child is being abused, you can do nothing. But what you can do has to be within the parameters of the law. Do we want to talk about abduction?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so let's look at the sections dealing with abduction. We did read the basic sections 352.
Ma'am, I need to ask something.
Sure.
So, ma'am, could we say that, as it has happened many a times, that enticing acts as a precursor to taking?
Usually, enticement can happen both cases. Taking cannot happen in the past. Because enticement may be in the past, as is the case in categorically recognized in Vadgama. He has been building up presence, trips, uh, uh, car rides, expensive presents. So all that has been happening over a period of time. So this all that was happening in the past. There is no statement that on the date when she left the mother's company and went to the boyfriend's this businessman's office. There's no evidence to say that day he did anything. So she was just
All right, ma'am.
she was just waiting for an opportunity, and she got that opportunity that day when mother left her midway to the school. So
Ma'am,
the
even
actions
four
of the
days before
accused
the
were
incident,
all, yes, Rahul?
ma'am, even 4 days before the incident that happened in Vadagama, he promised something like, "I will provide you a good life permanently," something like
Yeah,
that.
but
He
that's
told.
still that is still 4 days below before, and there's no suggestion that 4 days below he did say okay such and such date come.
No, ma'am. Yes, correct.
So therefore all the enticement was happening in the past. So sometime it may happen simultaneously with taking as well. The examples I've given you is when you lure children with chocolates, with the mithai, with biscuits, with toys, and then you say, "Come with me, I'll give you more." So they're both enticement and taking is happening simultaneously. So the only thing we know is that taking cannot happen in the past. But taking can be voluntary, it may be involuntary, where you gag someone and blindfold somebody and then just carry that person. It's possible taking. When the person walks along with you, or you make that person to walk with you because you are shoving a gun in his body. So these are cases where people are walking with you. So whether taking them with you, and the distinction has been made that allowing a person to accompany you. So suppose a child has run away and says, "I don't want to go home. So take me to some safe place." So he's going along with you. So in that case, you're not taking, you're allowing the child to accompany you to the police station or to the shelter home. So the distinction has to be maintained in allowing a person to come with you and taking that person. So unless the taking is happening in the right of exercise of the right of private defense of the child, because you have a right to private defense not only of your person and body, but also body and person of anybody else. So if somebody is being molested in your presence and you want to support that person, then you are acting in right of under the exercising right of private defense of the other person's body or property. Any other clarification?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so in case of 362, we read this that uh, by force or by deceitful means. In deceit, suppose somebody comes to my house and says, I am your father's friend, and he has asked me to come with me to such and such place. I am aware that this person is not my father's friend, but I'm still curious to find out why is he taking me and where is he taking me. So I go with him. Have this action of abduction taken place?
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
he
there
made
was
false
no
representation,
force
so it
or
comes under deceive.
compulsion in this case, since you knew that about his motives. Surely there was a deceitful means, but there was no force or compulsion on you. You went there on your own accord or curiosity. So I think that doesn't
It
count
is
as.
force or, it is force or. So it
It
is
is
not
deceit, ma'am.
necessary that there should be both.
I see
Whether,
neither in this case, I mean, neither there is force nor there is any compulsion on you to go with that person.
why do you say so? Because he did say he was my father's friend, while he was actually not my father's friend.
Uh, Ma'am, because first of all, you said that you knew about his motives, not motives, that he is not your father's friend.
Yeah,
Secondly,
so no,
even
I
if
was not
he was
deceived.
your
I was
father's
not
friend,
deceived. I was not deceived, but he was trying to deceive me.
yes,
So he was using deceitful means.
and but there was no compulsion on your part. I mean, if he's your father's friend, that doesn't mean that he has the right to take you anywhere, and you can't say no to that.
But he does not know. He think that I am going because I believe him.
I think the compilation over here should be subjective in nature to the victim,
Mm-hmm.
whether he thinks that he is compelled or not whether the assailant or whatever is the intention of the assailant.
Yeah, you're all right. Because when we talk about deceit, it was of three components that a false statement is being made. The maker of the statement knows it's false. The receiver of the information does not know it is false. Only then there is deception. If the makers believe it to be the truth, even though it's a false statement, there's no deceit. If the receiver knows that the false statement is false, there is no deceit. Deceit is only when you believe the false statement and the person making the false statement knows that it is false. So there has to be very clear understanding that the maker knows I am not so and so, I am not, whatever I'm saying is false, but the receiver believes it's the truth. But if the other way around happened, that the deceiver, that the person making the statement believe it to be true, I also believe it to be true. But objectively speaking, it was a false statement. There's again no deceit. So there has to be the intention to deceive, and therefore you knowingly make a false statement, presenting it to be the truth. The receiver of this the statement believes the false statement to be the truth. Only then there is deception. So if I went there with this man just to find out why is he taking me and where is he taking me, I am not being abducted as per the definition given in 362. 362 says that either there should have been force or there should have been deceitful means, induces, because of which, because I believe in that, therefore I'm motivated to go from any place to some other place. Then when you look at the subsequent sections, kidnapping or maybe 363A we will pass for the time being. Look at 364, kidnapping or abduction in order to murder. Whoever kidnaps or abducts any person in order that such person may be murdered or may be so disposed of as to be put in danger of being murdered shall be punished with specified punishment. So when we were comparing the scheme of the legislation, we found that there is a section 363 which provides for punishment for kidnapping. Whoever kidnaps from India or from lawful guardianship. So which are the sections? This section is referring to 359 and 360. No, 360 and 361. 360 and 361. So for that offense, it does not say what is the purpose. It merely says if kidnapping has happened or abduction, kidnapping from India or from lawful guardianship happened, this punishment will apply. So there is nothing else required. If there is kidnapping for the purpose of murder, then 364. But kidnapping as defined in 361 or 360, straight away 363 provides for punishment. But in case of 362, there is no section here under the heading of abduction, which says that if a person conveys, compels, or by deceitful means induces a person to go from one place, this punishment will happen. So therefore, unless this conveying is done for a specified purpose given in 364, 364A, 365, 366, 366. So all these sections are laying down the purpose for which if a person has been induced to go from one place to another, then it's a punishable activity. In case of 300 defined, and there was a punishing clause 302. 299 defined, there was a punishing clause. In 360 and 361, there's a definition clause and there is a punishing clause. In case of 362, as it is, there is no punishing clause. So therefore, merely conveying a person, making a person to go from one place to another, does not amount to the offense of abduction. It may amount to some other offense. And therefore, what we need to find out that whether in case of abduction, what was the purpose of making a person go from one place to another? So the example I gave you, my father, information came that my father has been hit and he's in the ICU at AIIMS, go there. So I go to AIIMS, I've missed my court date. That is not an offense of abduction because missing a court date is not listed among the objectives. But the objectives was that they would want to then take me in custody. There is a whole set of gundas waiting for me at AIIMS. And that is the purpose. So when I reach there, so when I have been, go there with the purpose of murdering me or that in circumstances that may lead me to murder. So murder is one, ransom is another one, and secretly, wrongfully confining. Lots of films show that the hero is asked to come to such and such place, and there all the goons are waiting for him, ready to kill him. So that becomes abduction, even though the goons have not come to his house to take him. Because our common understanding, abduction बहुत clear समझते हैं जब किसी को ऐसे मुंह से पकड़ा और आप गाड़ी में डाल के ले गए. That is certainly abduction. Adult का बहुत फिल्मों में ऐसा होता है. But many a times, the hero is asked to come to such and such place. Now, if you do not come, your mother will be killed. Do you think, the whole plan is that there they will be do bargaining, either they will ask for money or they will hit him, they will kill somebody, they might kill the man also. So this hero reaches that place. Do you think the offense of abduction has taken place?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you have now the purpose also that either they want to take ransom from him or they want to injure him, confine him. That no, they will also keep him and then they'll find somebody else also to come and rescue, or they will, so is it, which clauses are attracted in 362?
364,
No.
364
In
means
362, which ingredients are satisfied for you to say that this hero who goes to the den of the goons has been abducted, even though he drives himself and goes to, because his
Ma'am,
mother
first
is
of all,
already in custody. By
compared
force.
to go here as there was threat that they will kill some person and all that. So there was force and compilation on his part to go there.
So
Secondly, there
he has not gone there on his own free will. He has been forced to go there. Or it might be that they falsely told him that your mother is in our, actually mother. Then by deceitful means, he had been forced to go there. He has been induced to, not forced to, he has been induced to go there. So therefore, certainly, if the purpose is such, so we were to make a distinction between these two offenses. We have other also, no? Kidnapping or abduction, abducting a child under 10 years with intent to steal from its person. We have seen this many times, the street children, they are not in the lawful, many of them, some of them are, quite a many of them are, some of them are not under the keeping of the lawful guardian. They just run away from home. They are staying on the street. So a street goon comes and um, takes the child forcibly, say, पूरे दिन की वो निकालो. Unless you give it to me, I'm not going to release you. पूरे दिन की जितनी कमाई है. Is this a case of kidnapping from lawful guardianship or abduction?
I might
Ma'am,
think it is
abduction.
abduction because first of all he was forced. Second, deceitful means were used like he was taken there forcefully
इसमें
and told to give order.
deceitful means नहीं है. इसमें deceitful means नहीं है. But even
He is
though it
not
is a
under the
child,
legal
even though
guardian.
it's a child, but because the child was not in the legal guard under the keeping of the legal guardianship, therefore 361 is not applicable. It will be your 369. Because sometimes it does happen that we get a bit confused. I think Shakib mentioned that because he was not in the lawful guardianship, therefore 361 will not apply. So certainly one difference we have understood between abduction and kidnapping. In abduction, this can be a person of any age. There's no age restriction in case of abduction. In case of kidnapping, under 361, the person has to be either a minor under 18 years of age or a person of unsound mind. So there are only two categories of people who may be kidnapped under section 361. So that's one difference between kidnapping and abduction, that abduction can happen of any person. And certainly, if that person is under the lawful guardianship, either because of the insanity or because of the age factor, then that goes into 361. The second one, consent of the person absolves the offender from the offense of abduction, because that person is capable of giving consent. While in case of kidnapping, consent of the person being kidnapped is of no consequence. The child is happy to go with the boyfriend, willingly goes with him or her, whatever the case might be. So the children are happy to go for whatever reason, whether because of the enticement or because of whatever other purpose. They're just being happy with that person. But their consent is of no consequence. So consent of the guardian is essential. So the taking has to have without the consent of the guardian, while here consent of the person being abducted absolves. So if it's a major girl on her own free will, she goes with somebody else. So this somebody else takes her away. There's certainly no question of abduction it being there. Of course, lots of parents file a case of abduction because they say not of abduction. They say it's a case of sometimes abduction, but most of the time they will say it's kidnapping under 361. The girl is underage. The girl will say, I'm not underage. Or sometime it may be that they're saying that no, this girl has been deceived. The adult girl has been deceived. She has been told that no, you are underage. She has been deceived. She has been told that no, you are underage. Or sometime it may be that they're saying that no, this girl has been deceived. The adult girl has been deceived. She has been told that no, you are underage. and therefore she had gone. She had been induced by the false promise of marriage. So she went away because of that, and therefore she has been abducted. So even though she is, if she is a consenting party, but if the consent has been obtained by force or fraud, Section 90 comes into operation, and therefore it will be no consent. But if it's a valid consent, then it is not an offense. In case of kidnapping, once a child from the lawful guardianship has been taken away and is now in the custody of somebody else, second time, if anybody else takes the child, either by force or by deceit, to a third place, the offense is not kidnapping because the child was no more in the lawful guardianship. But if the child, a homeless child, was first abducted by A, from A, he was abducted by B. A also commits the offense of abduction, B also commits the offense of abduction. From B, C abducts, that's a third offense. It's a continuous process. Every time the child is made to go from one place to another, either because of deceit or because of force, every time the new offense of abduction continues, occurs. But in case of kidnapping, as long as the child is out of the keeping, then it has to be the second, third, fourth runs will be abduction and not of kidnapping. Because of the first requirement that only those children can be abducted, can be kidnapped who are under the lawful keeping of the guardian. So far, so good?
Ma'am, can we say for the offense of abduction, mens rea is needed?
It is not mens rea in the sense of the mental state. We have its motive, and we did say there's a difference between motive and intention. Intention, knowledge, reason to believe are indicative of mental state. The purpose is not part of the mental state. The purpose gives rise to the mental state, but they are not the same thing. So when we say, loosely we'll say the intention was to murder, but that's not actually intention. The purpose was to murder. In case of abduction, when we say intention to murder, then we are talking about the offense of murder. But if my reason for abducting a person is to murder, then that is my reason. And the reason why I want to murder is because I'm a paid killer. I'll get money. So certainly I commit the offense of murder. I also commit the offense of abduction for the purpose of murder. If I do both, sometimes I can just go and fire somebody and kill. I don't have to abduct. But if I take him out of his own office and then take him somewhere else, ask money, if he doesn't give money, then I'm ready to kill. Then purposes are ransom, and if no ransom, then murder. So the purposes have, and purpose, whenever we're talking about abduction, you have to find out a section which covers the object for which this person was taken away. So suppose the purpose is, we make an offer saying, you come to such and such place and I will give you a job. And this person goes to such and such place. Whether the offense of abduction taken place? And it's a false promise.
Yes, ma'am. Abduction is there.
But is it the offense of abduction?
Ma'am, I think under 365,
What does 365 say?
kidnapping or abducting with intent, secretly, and wrongfully to confine person.
Where did I say the fact that I was confined when I went there? Yeah, it is not the offense, but it is abduction. So for abduction, it has to be that if this second thing also happens, that there is always a trap, that the moment you will enter such and such building, you are going to get entrapped. There's a trap door and you will just go and get confined. Then certainly it will be the offense of abduction coming under 365. So there has to be, because it says with intent, secretly and wrongfully to confine the person. So this section is using the word intent, but this is used more in the sense of the motive because of which you are saying. So what do you intend to do with that person when you know, uh, what is it that you will do with that person at the end of the conveying? So conveying is one part of it. You can do it yourself or you can induce the person to do it. Because when it comes to force, use of force, then you are taking the person, you are conveying the person yourself. When it comes to deceitful means, then you are inducing that person. So even though the person has gone on their own, it still is the act of abduction. But for the offense of abduction, I need to know why was this person made to go. So in the first example I gave earlier, the purpose is to prevent me from appearing in the court hearing. So that purpose is not listed in any of the sections here. So that will not be the offense of abduction. But if the purpose is to then take me forcibly to get married, to confine, to cause grievous hurt, um, slavery, so all these are the categories listed there. So if any of the specified purpose is there, that is what I want to do, I intend to do, then it is the offense. But in case of kidnapping from lawful guardianship, what is my purpose is of no relevance. It's a good purpose because all the purposes listed are bad purposes. So sometimes we get confused that if the purpose was good, then why should there be kidnapping? But that's what the technical position is, that if it is kidnapping under 361, then we do not ask the question, what was your intention? What were you planning to do with the child? The fact that you've taken the child or enticed the child out of the keeping of the lawful guardianship, that's sufficient. You don't require anything more than that.
Ma'am, what are the substances of deceitful means? Does it only like extend to a deceitful information, a lie, or it can be like broadened into more offenses?
Give me an example. We'll have it, no, we have this state of
Example,
mind, mis
uh, I'm asking
dishonestly
what
and fraudulently.
can be
When we'll come to
categorized
offenses against property, we will be examining the deceit. When you look at cheating, for example, so by deceitful means he deceives a person and deprives a person of property. Then it's the offense of cheating. Then cheating can be also by impersonation. So there might be, no, I present myself to be Professor XYZ while I'm actually Professor ABC. The other person believes me. So students do this many times. They will come with somebody else's iCard, present themselves to be such and such person. So they are deceiving. When they're not caught, they have still deceived the examiner, like every personnel involved in the examination system, which were to ensure that the person whose iCard this is, whose entrance ticket it is, that sits. So the persons, sometimes they get caught, so they were trying to deceive. Sometimes they successfully deceive. So it may be either, but it's a representation either by just words, or you might show a document, you can sign a check, which is, the check itself is a fake document. You are again deceiving. So it may take many forms, but as long as you are presenting that
basically
as the genuine thing or genuine statement, and you know that it is not true. When you present, for example, a mark sheet with no, which you have tempered with already, and you make a photocopy and give it to the for admission purposes, deception. Anything else?
Ma'am, one clarification needed. Ma'am, in our criminal manual, it's written about state amendment in Manipur. as section 361 for the words 18, substitute the word 15. Ma'am, does the state have the power to supersede the central legislation? Because as you said, in child is मतलब 18 साल से नीचे ही होता है, and this is 15 in the Manipur legislation.
Which year was this?
With effect from 25th January 1972.
In 1972, 361. And at that point of time, we are still talking about 19. So the first question first, that we know in the constitution we have three lists: state list, central list, and the concurrent list. State list, only state makes the law. Central list, only center makes the law. So it's only in case of concurrent list that the center can, either of the two can legislate. If the center has legislated, the states have this power to ask for variation in the law as applicable to their state with the consent of the president. So the first answer is yes. The second thing, that even though this is a 1992 thing, the later judgment of the Supreme and the Juvenile Justice Act, which has come into force in 2015, will again override this amendment. But that's again a central legislation, and also the I think section 1(4) of the Juvenile Justice Act says, notwithstanding anything contained in either law of being, the provisions of this legislation will apply. So by operation of subsequent central legislation, this amendment can be rendered nugatory, maybe rendered not enforceable, not useful anymore. So unless the state again goes, and because this change has been given by the judicial decision, Supreme Court decisions are binding on all the states. That is the law of the land. So if not only Supreme Court, but also, so there are two ways a state amendment which has been made with the permission of the president can be negated. One, by a subsequent amendment of the section by the center, or through a judicial interpretation also. So in this case, the section 361 has not been amended itself, it stays. But because of the section 89 of Juvenile Justice Act, it has been put as 18, and that will apply. And that has been done more because of there's been two sections which have been changed. One is by the Legislation Juvenile Justice Act. The second one will be the age of 16 in case of section 375. 375 also say that consent of a girl above this age of 16 is valid consent. And there was this controversy that POCSO says till the age of 18, girls and boys cannot give consent to have sexual intercourse, while 375 of IPC says consent of the girl above the age of 16, unmarried girl above the age of 16, is a valid consent. So then again, I think in Puttaswamy's, no, not Puttaswamy, I'll tell you the name of the case, I'm just forgetting. So the Supreme Court has said that now for the purposes of law, it will be 18 even in case of sexual intercourse. So
Ma'am, independent thought, this Union of India.
Independent thought, yeah, independent thought. So in independent thought judgment, the Supreme Court has said that it is the age of 18 even in section 375. So 375 age category has been changed by the Supreme Court, and 361 age has been changed by the Juvenile Justice Act. And because both these are later positions, later laws, they will override the state amendments if they were made earlier, unless the state again wants to go and get a special exception for themselves. There's no exception carved out either in Juvenile Justice Act or in the independent thought judgment. Any more questions? So we're a bit behind our schedule. I was hoping that we would have started conversation on sexual offenses, but given the time frame I have, that's not going to happen. Yes, please put down your attendance. I will not be now meeting you in March. I will most probably meet you only in April. I'll put the timetable if you're whether we are continuing with the same timetable or different ones on the dashboard. If I'm able to hold a couple of classes before your midterm break from Orissa, I'm leaving tomorrow. So if I'm able to do that, I'll put that also on the dashboard. So be prepared for a couple of extra classes, either now in March itself but certainly in April, because April I want to finish. My schedule goes up to first week of May, but I will try and finish the course within April itself. So either I'll have some classes. Do you know whether a midterm break is happening or not?
No,
Ma'am,
we have came down.
Hmm?
Ma'am, we are going to ask you the same.
Yeah, no, because I prepared the schedule assuming there will be a midterm break. But because the session has started late, so I'm not very sure, because we have not had midterm break in the last 2 semesters, 2 or 3 semesters for different reasons. Law faculty, even the university goes on midterm break. So wait for some notification at your end. But for my class, I know I have scheduled your semester schedule, including the midterm break. So for the week of 24th to 31st, I have not scheduled any classes. And there'll be the Holi around that time. So the students do get busy. When the university was open, then a couple of days before that, university closes because a lot of color and hooliganism happens. In any case, 24th to 31st is the Holy Week as well. I'm quite clear that in that week I'm not having a class. I'm not very sure whether coming Monday and Tuesday I will be able to take your scheduled classes. My present sense is that it will be a no. But in case I feel that I can manage with my new entry into the new job with this class, seems like unlikely to me. So I'm actually saying that we will meet now in April, unless you hear from me otherwise.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Pleasure.
Ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yes, Deepika?
Ma'am, I have a doubt regarding the case, Keshan versus State of MP, which we discussed in our previous class.
Mhm.
Ma'am, there a criminal act was done by several persons in furtherance of the common intention, that is killing the deceased. So, ma'am, why are all are not being held liable for the same as the main accused who was punished?
What was the charge? Let's look at the case again. The good thing to ask.
And the main accused was convicted under Section 302 by Section 3 under third clause reasoning.
Yeah, what were the others convicted of? Tell me, what were the others convicted for?
I'm not sure. Earlier, they were acquitted by the High Court.
Yeah, because if they were all,
Others
yes,
were convicted for under Section 326, 324, 323, read
Mhm.
with Section 149.
Yeah, 149 is talking about the joint liability. No, it's not 34. But there are two sections, Deepika, which talk about not two sets of scenarios where there may be a joint liability. So if there were more than 5 people, 5 or more people, then we usually apply section 149. That's also joint liability, that even though you have not done the same act.
The
So
others were convicted under Section 323 IPC. I'm talking about the Kishan versus State of MP. 323 section, they were held liable.
yeah, because there might be, it's a good question. Let me just look at the case law. Appeal from judgment of High Court, appellant 302, imprisonment for life. claimed Ganesh in Abnormal and Section 323, imposed sentence of they have not appealed. The three persons were tried for the murder, all the three, remember? The aforesaid three persons were tried for the murder of one Bucha by the additional session judge. So they were all charged with 302, and that will be 302 read with 34. Prosecution case was on this and this. They went, could not file, kicks, all that. The prosecution examined 5 witnesses. The state appealed against the judgment of the session judge. The High Court did not rely on the evidence of Kanhaiya Lal. High Court, however, relied on the evidence of these other persons. Agreeing with the session judge, the High Court held the appellant had inflicted blows on the head of the deceased. The High Court has further agreed Ganesh did not instigate the appellant to kill Bucha. There the area of agreement between the two ends, disagreeing with the session judge, the High Court has held appellant and his co-accused were the aggressors. Bucha was not an aggressor, so that's on the private defense part of it. In the result, High Court convicted the appellant under 302. You know what they're saying basically in the part we just read, that there was whether there was a common intention for 34 liability, there should be a common intention to kill. So they had the common intention to cause injuries, but it was not proved in the case that there was a common intention to kill. So therefore 326 may be read with 34, but 302 is not. And the statement will say that the others had not instigated, he just killed himself. So unless for the 34 liability to come, and many a times it does happen that it's not clear as to who gave what blow and with what intention they came. So what is clear from the facts is that they had all come with the intention to beat him. And certainly they were not expecting that Bucha will turn around and will become more powerful by the use of the Khutai. And therefore the things changed for them. At that point of time, they all decided what was to be done. There was no common intention at that point of time to retaliate as a group. And that is where I think the judge would have made a distinction that it is this person who is clearly attributed with the fatal injuries on Bucha. Therefore, his liability is 302. Others' liability is under 323 and 326. That's what my sense would be of the fact that why were the others not held guilty for 302.
320 is grievous hurt.
No, 320 is a grievous hurt, but that is the definition of grievous hurt. The punishment for that is under 326.
Ma'am, it's given in the fact itself that Ganesh encouraged his brother, Harcharan, to catch hold of Bucha and kill him. Before Bucha gave the blow to one of the accused, they actually intended to kill him. I mean, it's given there in the fact itself.
No, look here, page number it is. But it said the High Court has further agreed with the session judge that Ganesh did not instigate the appellant to kill Bucha. But there the area of agreement between the two ends. But both the session judge, there's a concurrent finding that Ganesh had not instigated. It might have been alleged, but has not been accepted as proved.
It's the prosecution story.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So, okay, any other questions, clarifications? Mark your attendance, please. We haven't done so already. Can we stop?
Yes.
See you in April.